Today, we're meeting with Casey Jacox. Casey is the author of a fantastic new book, Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, 6 Common Sense Strategies to Succeed in Business and Life. And of course, many of you know, we've been on our pedestal for the better part of a year talking about this common sense revolution required in professional sales. We've got to change things based on the way things are going in terms of statistics. And that's why Casey's book jumped out at me so much. You know, when you read a book that says we've got 6 common sense strategies, and they're spectacular, by the way, simple but powerful. And the 6 strategies, we're going to talk to Casey about them in a few minutes here. But the first one, follow the golden rule always, treat others like you'd like to be treated. Number 2, always set proper expectations. Number 3, big one, don't just hear the customer, listen to them and almost really understand what they're looking for. Number 4, always document and follow up. The 5th common sense strategy, and let's take this one to heart, team, ditch the ego and let your authentic self shine. Wow. And then finally, number 6, success takes time. Be patient and persistent. Be patient and persistent. One of the things that strikes me so much about my interaction, reading the book and then interaction with Casey, love the authenticity, the vulnerability, the lifelong learning. Just an amazingly successful professional salesperson. He'd actually spent 19 years with the same firm, Kforce, and became their all-time leading salesperson ever. And that was before leaving and founding a company called Winning the Relationship. He's also the host of his own podcast. Many of you find real interest here. Host of the Quarterback Dadcast. And the 2 words, obviously he's a dad, talks about the vulnerability and authenticity of being a father. But the quarterback part comes because he was the quarterback for Central Washington University. And by the way, there's some really great stories in the book where Casey's sharing where he had to be, professionally persistent and learn and grow first to make his, the varsity team even in high school, and then playing at the collegiate level. You can imagine what a challenging thing that would be. So let's welcome Casey to the show here today, team. Casey, are you there?
I am here. What a generous intro, Mark. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a pleasure, by the way. All truthful, really love the book. And one of the things I always say, Casey, I always use in our workshops, we talk about that Mark Twain quote, which is so important. Hey, I wrote you a long letter. If I had more time, I would have written you the short letter. And when I read books, because I read from so many great authors like yourself, folks who have really spent that time to boil things down to those things that are most important. And then the other thing that brought your book alive for me personally, the examples, the real life examples really jump out. Let me ask you this just off the top, Casey. So what prompted you to release a book? You released it right in the middle of COVID 2020. What prompted you to write the book?
So the sarcastic answer is I wanted to prove that us football guys can put sentences together.
So in Canada, we have the same thing about hockey players. I'm a hockey player, and definitely I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So
here we go. No, in all seriousness, I knew earlier in my career that the power of writing was undervalued because as we try to build relationships, get meetings with customers, because they're not always going to take our phone call every time. So I wanted to improve my skill set on writing. So I literally just started, asking for help often from leaders, from college, from teammates, from colleagues, et cetera, about like, hey, how does this look? And we kept doing that. And then I was traveling quite a bit in my old job. And I remember I had this like lightning bolt hit me. I was like, when I was working with my team and trying to train them on the mindset of it's more important to win people. If we try to win every transaction, we're never going to win. But if we win people, meaning you might have to say no sometimes, you might say, we're not the best fit for this, but let me help you try to find someone else. And then it like hit me as like, win the relationship, not the deal. That's it. And it was like, that was like 9 or 10 years ago. But I didn't want to write the book when I was still at Kforce because I didn't feel like it was fair to them or fair to me. I wanted to be all in. And then when it was time to part ways, which was an amazing divorce, I think the world of that company, and I'm still in great relationship, all of them. I spent about 2 or 3 hours each day from 9 to 11:30, 12. And I literally wrote for 4 months. Some days I thought it was Hemingway. Other days I thought it was Beverly Cleary. And, some days it was good, some days it was bad. But that's really the story of how it got, how I wrote it. And it's everything I thought it would be and everything it turned out to be.
Well, great job. By the way, you must be so happy to have it behind you. I'm going through that process myself right now.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and so the up and downs of, man, this is fantastic too. I don't want to read another chapter in this book. It seems to vacillate almost weekly. So great, good for you on the perseverance to get through it.
Well, now I got to hear about this book before we go, because I'm going to make sure I'm going to be one of the first readers.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll share a few thoughts at the end. So, one of the things I bet our team would love to hear today, Casey, tell me a little bit about, we touched on Kforce, but as somebody who comes out of, a great college, probably, after playing varsity football as the captain and quarterback, certainly have your kind of career options, in front of you, lots of options on the table for somebody with those credentials leaving college or university. Tell us about the journey into professional sales. How'd you get into there?
Yeah, so when I left Central Washington, I was teased a chance to play overseas. A guy that I played right behind before, a guy named John Kitna, played in the NFL for 18 years. Amazing player.
Wow.
Yeah, so I played quarterback right after John left. So my goal when he left was try to go after, the only record left I thought was attainable was most interceptions in a game. Thankfully, I did not get that one. But joking aside, I knew I loved people. I knew I loved influencing people on the football field. I know I loved rallying people, and I knew that, like, as a seller, if I could attract people, build relationships, that was a career that would allow for me successful things to do in life. And my dad was he sold for 34 years for Whirlpool, client salesman. I wrote about him in the book around battling the dementia.
Yeah.
And I actually saw him yesterday for the first time in a while. And unfortunately, he's at the end of his life, and it was sad, but I did see him blow a kiss, and he's not quite there, and it was really a special moment. But anyway, I got into sales, and one of my high school football coaches, a guy named Matt Sorotsky, gave me a chance, and he put me in a national sales role, and I was making 80 to 100 calls a day, not really knowing what I was selling. Was there, typical brand new sales role where you're just pounding the phone and, made a few deals, did a few things. Then I started having some success, but I really couldn't understand the commission plan, and no one really could answer it for me. And I kept asking questions. And then at the end of about my 1 year review, I told another leader, an unnamed leader, I said, I really want to get in front of the customer, and I want to double my salary. Those are my goals for next year. And he said, Casey, those are really aggressive goals for someone your age. I'm not sure those are going to be good goals, which was my sign I need to go. And so one of my best friends, Kelly Hansen, introduced me to a company called Hall-Kinyon, which was acquired by Kforce in June of 2004. And then the rest was kind of history.
Well, listen, I'm sorry to hear about your dad, and that certainly touched me in the book. My dad had the same thing. So I have some experience with that, and it is a truly sinister disease. So certainly, thoughts with you and your family as you're working through that.
Yeah, thank you.
How interesting, in the day and age when you started, you jump on board after one quick move. You last with a company for 18, 19 years, which is fundamentally almost unheard of today.
I know.
You think of that today, the latest stats on the tenure of a sales leader, less than 2 years. Mm-hmm. And the stats of a tenure of a new SDR, sales or BDR coming in, year and a half, 18 months. So somebody who's, first of all, credit to them and to you, for them to keep you challenged throughout that whole process and new adventures. Obviously, you're growth oriented, so you needed new challenges and opportunities throughout that journey, and they provided them. So must be a spectacular company.
It is. It was an amazing run. I mean, I had so many great leaders: Jeffrey Neal, Kai Mitchell, Dan Black. So many. I mean, the list goes on. David Dunkel. I mean, there's so many people that were very influential and supportive of me, and a lot of them, the teammates too, and the customer. I mean, I worked with in the wireless industry, so I had to changing and many reorgs, and always so many ups and downs. But I used my how long I was there as a competitive advantage.
For sure.
I would use the open-ended question framework called TED-based questions, which I learned from a guy named John Kaplan. And I think, when you could look at the customer in the eye and say, just describe how important it is to have a a company with a seller like me who's been around for almost 20 years support you versus someone who's been there 6 weeks, someone who's going to give you better service?
Well, you know what, you think of that from 20 years ago, and some of your friend Andy Paul, who's someone I've been really privileged to be on his podcast a couple of times. He's been on this one once or twice too, but he talks about leading with the sharp end of the spear. So if you've got an expert who's in front of the client's getting value from that conversation because you understand their business, you understand the goals and objectives, and you're creative enough to figure out ways to help them get there. And that is just so critically important today. I think, Casey, when you start to see the stats that come back from Gardner and others, where the buyers aren't seeing value in working with salespeople. And, even in your great book, you reference, I think it's a propeller stat that says, there's 18% of customers trust salespeople. Less than 18% of customers actually trust salespeople. So the trust and credibility kind of go together there. So being able to work with a client or a prospect and help them get to that better future is so critical. And developing that skill set and that business acumen on salespeople today, not just knowing their own products and services and pitching, but actually understanding the clients they're selling to. Think of how powerful you would have been after 18, 19 years selling to these different industries. I love the way you package this in the book, Casey. Tell us your view of what selling really is. So when we think of trying to define selling today, I think that's probably where one big misconception starts. Tell us your view of selling. What's selling about?
Tim, well, I think selling gets a bad rap because if you're selling something, that's the problem, right? In any good, great business relationship, the customer is going to sell themselves. It's my job to ask great questions to help them uncover, do they have a problem or not, right? And I think once we help meet them where they are, help them identify, do they have a problem? Do they have a pain? Is it impacting their company, their role, their career, whatever it may be? I think selling also to me is not asking just one question, then go and vomit to the mouth and open up your trench coat and show them all your products. It's tell me more about that. Describe why that's negatively impacting you. Like use open-ended framework to really understand and help the customer or prospect figure out, do they have a problem? And so I think when you do that, and I reference this in the book, I learned this I think it's a sarcastic name, but I love it. It's called seller deficit disorder. And it was by John Kaplan and their company called Force Management. And so this seller deficit disorder, they say it's defined by two key skills that ravishes the sales industry, puts people in the ER, gets them airlifted. I'm joking now, but the point is customers say they don't like salespeople because they don't listen and they don't understand my business.
Yeah.
Those are two things we have control over, Mark, right? If I just show up and listen and put my phone down, take off my watch, that's buzzing all the time, look them in the eye, be prepared to ask open-ended questions about their business, right? And then just follow up consistently. And I talk about this in the book as well, around documenting what I hear, explaining to the customer what I heard. I think it's on page 82, 83, 84, if my memory is correct.
Nice.
Where I literally give an example of a follow-up email I did. So I think long-winded answer, selling to me, it's not about me. It's never about me. It's never about the seller. It's about the customer. And if you come with that mindset, just ready to serve, it's going to take time, but you will be successful if you have that mindset. Well,
of course you will. You also would have really liked that you brought out in the book so well, Casey. I think it became very clear is this idea of selling, with empathy or living with empathy. Put yourselves in the shoes of somebody else. Nobody needs to know. They don't want to be pitched at. They don't want to be, you have the jacket opened up with all the products. That's peddling. When we come in, I think we want to earn the right to proceed with clients and prospects and maybe start that foundation for building a relationship. I think we need a point of view on them, their business, some of the challenges they're experiencing long before we step into that meeting. And the sooner they can understand we actually know a little bit about them and it's only about them, the better off we're going to be. And I think you've used a couple of examples where you helped a client where you weren't the right solution for them and you declared that. And then immediately, down the road, that's not going to hurt you one bit. They'll always remember that. but I think psychologically it also helps you. So if we get
On the
away
right hand.
from trying to pitch things and say, hey, I just want to help people run better businesses, and if we can support them to do that, that's terrific. And if we're not a good fit for that, that's terrific as well, because there's lots of people we will be a good fit for.
100%.
We'll go find those.
Well, it's sad, the state of life, that you get rewarded for being honest and by telling them no. And I did that multiple times. And I mean, I tell a story where I had a huge opportunity. We used to go to this exhibit, whatever, developer summit in Las Vegas.
Right.
And I remember I had this huge opportunity. I was like, oh my God, I finally got this guy. He's called me back. He wants to help. There was money. Oh, we could do this. And then I was like, God, the risk is just way too much. And I was like, in my mind, I said, no, it's not worth it. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to be known. They're like, Jacox, oh yeah, that was that guy we hired and his team. And they came in and they said they could do everything. And then they completely ruined our event because he oversold us. And to me, it was more important. And I said, it's more important for me to win you. I've been trying to work with you for like 3 years. I want to win you. And then when it's time right where I know we're a better fit, I'm going to go with it. And so, you got a lot of weird looks from my team, but in the end, it was a great teaching moment, a great opportunity for me to walk the walk. And I think a great way to prove to the customer that I want to be uncommon. Because it's easy to do what everybody else does, but it's not always easy to be uncommon.
What a great way to be so proud of what you do for a living as well. And one of the things we're seeing, Casey, I'd be interested in your perspective. Professional sales isn't as fun as it should be anymore. And I think there's lots and lots of reasons for that we can get into, but at the core, I think people are having a good time when they're proud of what they do. And they get, their self-esteem improves because of what they do. And for lots of reasons, with stereotypes and 30-year-old visions of what professional sales is. Sales is just helping somebody solve a significant problem in a way that's mutually beneficial for them and for you. And if we can't help them, we declare that and we provide counsel and expertise, but it really is a small world out there, particularly for your 23-year-old self that you're actually writing this book for. I love that statement too. Casey wrote the book for his 23-year-old self, the stuff he didn't know when he was 23. That 23-year-old self doesn't know that they're going to keep coming back across the same, senior professional executives for the next 20 years. So the only thing that matters is your reputation, your value system, your approach, the way you treat people. That's the only thing people are going to remember. They're not going to remember the sales number you hit, 15 years ago. They're going to remember the type of person you were and what it was like to work, and your character and your integrity. I think not enough young people are getting that proper message from their coaches these days or their leaders.
Yeah, you said there's two things you said, Mark, that really hit home for me and there are two things that I give my clients when I coach them is whenever I see someone losing confidence or they're fearful of saying something or they use negative self-talk out loud, which is one of the most damaging things we can do. I have stats and science to back that up, and I can share here in a second. But when we go through those struggles, I like to say, tell me, do you believe what you do matters? And they're like, yeah. I said, if you believe what you do matters, if you truly do, then you just gave yourself the confidence to ask any question to anybody because you believe you're doing it from a spot of service and of heart. Second thing you talked about around some of the messaging we say is I call it the Maya Angelou moment. I'm paraphrasing, but I love Maya Angelou. She says, it's not what I said, why I said, about how I made you feel when we leave the room. So you could have the prettiest PowerPoint, you could have the prettiest documentation, you could have the best business card, thick, that you spent $40 on a card, and you roll up in the sweet car. But if you don't listen and make them feel special, and then you're just like everybody else. I'd rather see you roll up in an 83 Gremlin, but you're so genuine, authentic, want to talk about them. And when you do that, you'll be on their mind 2-3 hours after that meeting. Right. They're like, and then you want to focus on 2 words in every meeting, which is a great question. Simple goal, but that's something I also coach my clients on. Like, listen for those 2 words. If you ask a good question, it's human nature. Someone's going to say, that's a good question. And they'll stop and think and give them space to think. So.
Well, boy, the good question, it's far less professional sales today. I think certainly when you're new to sales, everybody gets trained on how do I pitch the product? What's the feature, the benefit, the demo? I spent a lot of time in technology. No one cares about the technology. They just care about what it does for them. If there's a small number of desired business outcomes that matter for every company. And so how do we understand what their desired outcomes are? And then we can go and figure out, do we have some technology that helps them get there? But folks, here's one worth underlining. And I pulled this quote from your book as well. I just love this, Casey. I'm going to find lots of opportunities to share. Now, I'll look down and read this one so I don't get it wrong. Positive self-talk. If we ask ourselves the positive outcomes that we get from having negative conversations, the list will be very short. The list will be very short. I was a bit of an athlete too, played prep school hockey, not at your level, nowhere near. But being Canadian, of course, I was playing hockey and I was a goalie. And it's a very interesting position being a goalie because, you know, every mistake you make goes on the scoreboard. So lots of mistakes. You're watching the Kraken in your neck of the woods these days. Lots of those defensemen make lots of mistakes. Lots of the forward make lots of mistakes. As soon as the goalie makes a mistake, it gets put on the scoreboard so we can count the number of mistakes. So as a young person, I had a real difficulty because you're both angry that you've made the mistake and then you're embarrassed that you've made the mistake. So I would react and it was negative. And I hadn't really had the maturity yet saying, I'm just beating myself up more and more here. So, what's really most important in that sport is it's the next shot because we don't have a time machine. I can't go save the one I just let in. Yep. It's the next shot. So this positive talk, you know, I found myself in life always kind of gravitating within the large sales organizations or groups of sales leaders to those people that were optimists, that were looking for ways to get to the goal. There's always something challenging with the company and the product and all of those type of things. No product's perfect, but it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So we need to get out there and make something great happen. And I love your I think it was Tommy Lasorda. You like the Tommy Lasorda quote? Do you remember that one off the top of your head?
Oh yeah. There's 3 types of people in life. People who watch things happen, wonder how things happen, or make things happen. The question I ask many of my clients all the time. What you just talked about a second ago about a goalie, that's probably why you've had success in your selling career, Mark, because you had to have what I call 1440 mindset, meaning that we each get 1,440 minutes each day. That clock resets. So as great as I am today, or as bad as I am today, I'm only as great for the 1,440 I get. So if you're at home or you're listening to this webinar and you're saying, man, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to plan. Yeah, you do. I call those 5 swear words, which I don't allow my clients to say, which are need to, should to, have to, want to, and can't.
Oh, fantastic.
Need to, should to, want to, have to, and can't. All those words they create one emotion that's called anxiety. They create a wish without a plan. They create a destination without a plan, right? And so as you talk about self-talk, I also do work. I'm a coach for a company called Limitless Minds, which was a company started by Russell Wilson and his brother Harry and a guy named DJ Eidson. And unfortunately, the great and elite Trevor Maude, who just passed away, unfortunately, due to cancer. But we talk and we teach about a mindset called neutral thinking. And so as an ex-quarterback in college, staying neutral in my thought never produces negative thoughts, but at least gives me a chance to produce positive thoughts. And so if I have a bad call, I'm like, oh God, Mar, I am horrible, man. I stink. But you have to stay neutral because there's going to be ups, there's downs. You know, as a quarterback, if I got sacked, if I threw an interception, I threw 4 picks in the first half one time, 4 picks, 4 interceptions. I love telling my kids that story. Dad was not good. I was getting booed. Think about how grandma felt. Listen to me getting yelled at, but it's how did I bounce back? Right. We still lost the game, but I threw for, almost 300 yards in the second half and 3 touchdowns and rallied. And you got to have that quick memory, just like you as a goalie or a defensive back or a kicker or whatever it is. We're only as good as the next play ahead of us. We can't change the past. Right. And it's okay not to know every answer, but it's not okay not to do anything about it. So if we're going to mess up, own it, figure out a way to get better. You'll be uncommon.
There's another great, by the way, for a different podcast, I will tell you all the times that I messed up in playing big games in hockey and some of the things that happen, and we'll laugh ourselves silly, but you remember them. But the key thing is there's this lesson learned. The one bad goal on a goalie cannot become 3 because they're in a bad headspace. And that's, by the way, when you watch hockey, as soon as somebody scores, they jump on the team in a big way because they know the goalie's confidence is waning a little bit. So they'll throw everything at them, see if they get another lucky one. So the idea here is so important. I think this is something I would have tried to coach my 23-year-old self is you can control that mindset. So whether we believe we can do it or whether we believe we're going to fail, we're probably right in both cases. So whatever you believe, we can actually control that mindset. And we're going to go through this journey. So why not stay in a positive, growth-oriented mindset, an abundance mindset, as my friends from Strategic Coach like to call it, an abundance mindset. The scarcity mindset drains everything. The abundance mindset means we can all do well, and there's a great opportunity. And most importantly, we're going to help the client get to a better future. So, Casey, you trained lots of salespeople. I know you do lots of coaching in the community. Tell me a little bit about today, because we've got lots of CEOs on today's live webinar, watching us on LinkedIn Live at a later date. Lots of sales leaders and salespeople. What are the attributes that you look for when you were hiring your sales teams or when you're coaching clients today, telling them how to, or helping them build their teams? What do you hire for in terms of professional salespeople?
So if I was hiring a salesperson right now, the first question I would ask him, I would say, Mark, tell me what's more important. Do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? First question I would ask, because I'm going to attack the ego right out of the gate. I want to find out how much of an egomaniac he or she is. Then the second question I'm going to ask, I'm going to say, Mark, tell me about the biggest moment of adversity in your life. I don't care where it was, and tell me how you overcame it. Tell me how you used that moment to be successful in the future. I want to know what kind of resilience and grit they have, because we're going to need that in selling. Right. And so for me, those two things were super important. I also want to coach. I also want to hire on humility and vulnerability. I want to hire and I want to help leaders, or if I was hiring a new seller, I want someone to be able to come to me and say, hey, Casey, as my leader, my pipeline's not good. I can sit here and lie to you and say I have 23 deals and it's going to close, or I could say I need help. Like, I don't know who the economic buyer is. I don't understand the decision criteria. I don't understand what the outcomes the client wants to do. Well, hey, great, let's work together. Right. And then the vulnerability, that's the vulnerability, or humility, just to say, I don't know, which is three words that are super hard for sellers to say, because we have these big egos. We want to be perceived as like the best. But I think I found, for me personally, which I love leading by example, is this stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. I've read my book 7 or 8 times. I learn every time for myself, which is kind of embarrassing to say, right? Which says that even me, who's the author, I need help for my own self, right? But when we can use these principles or these things I'm coaching on, and we all want to get, or if I'm hiring for those, I believe those attributes will more withstand the ups and downs of every business, which is never going to go like this. You're going to have downfalls, but how are you going to be remembered internally when those happen? How are you going to be remembered when those happen externally? I don't know if you remember the story in the book, but one of my biggest moments of my career, I was part of one of the largest deals in my company history. 3 months later, one of the largest flunks in my company history. I probably got too much credit when it happened on the good side, too much blame when it happened on the bad side, kind of like a quarterback gets. Right? The client said, Casey, the day you won it, the day you lost it, you're the same dude. Thank you. That was probably one of the most ultimate compliments in my entire career. I'm still close to that customer today. I bet if I texted her while I were on the phone, she'd get back to me. It goes back, which is, again, kind of full circle what we're talking about today. It's about the relationship, not the deal.
Well, and let's unpack a few of those things, because there's so many good things you mentioned there. We'll go, one thing that jumps out, the humility. So the theme of humility throughout the course of the book is so prevalent, which I think is so important, because it does lead to, humility being the opposite of ego. And, your fifth common sense strategy, ditch the ego and let your authentic self shine. So critically important in sales. And one of the questions we love as an interview to think about humility is, we'll ask somebody, what's the next thing they need to learn? And some of the most successful entrepreneurs, some of the most successful athletes, some of the most successful salespeople I've ever met, they're always learning, and they're so intellectually curious. They might be spectacular at 10 different things, But if there's one thing over here, they're really always developing and learning, and they want to pull that information. Folks who who don't have that growth mindset, they're in a different spot, and it's much more difficult to work with them because their belief is they may be talented, by the way, they may be capable, but if they have a fixed mindset, their belief ends up being, hey, anytime I can't get better. So a lot of what I do is just what I'm naturally good. I'm naturally got a great arm. I'm fast. So if I can't get better, then anytime I'm working with someone, it's not really collaboration. They're judging me. And at the judgment, I wear like a scarlet letter because I don't think I can get better. So I don't want that judgment. A lot of that we've teased out of Carol Dweck. And mindset, fantastic. But that's really where she kind of identified those things. And one of the things, gang, that's all just helpful for anybody listening here today is you can change that. There's a pretty good chance somewhere in your life you have a growth mindset, whether you're a musician or a cook, or you do woodworking or gardening. There's some area of your life where you actually learn and develop and get better. But I think we really have to apply that to professional sales these days, because I think our world, our business discipline is going through a transition. And I think there's going to be a bigger gap between those performers and the non-performers. It's going to increase because we have to be able to add value to buyers, and they're not seeing the value today. So that's where this common sense revolution is coming. If we can't add value in a conversation with a buyer, they do not want to talk to you, you're going to have a tough time in professional sales. So that's one of the big ones. Tell me a little bit about the psychological safety. So you said, hey, if somebody's not performing, they've got to feel comfortable enough to say, I don't know, but it's not acceptable that they don't do something about the I don't know. I think that came from one of your mentors in the book as well.
Yep. John Kaplan. So when I think about this, there's so many times I'll work with leaders or companies and these can be quote unquote buzzwords. Oh yeah, we got a great vulnerable environment. We're super humble, great team. And I'll say, awesome. Tell me the last time you as a leader have openly talked about your gaps, your failure, or your mistakes with your team in front of everybody in the last month. Usually you get a blank stare. So the goal is I'm not trying to embarrass a leader, but I'm trying to prove a point that, which is, I don't remember the story I told in my book when I got coached hard at the end of my career when I was helping a sales transformation. Maybe I can tell the story real quick. So I was leading me and probably, 5, 6 other folks, key members in this team, leading a sales transformation of how to use a value-based selling approach. And we were working with this outside partner, great company. And I was our number one rep at the time. And I thought I knew this stuff pretty well. We're in Dallas. I was leading it. I had to present in front of our CMO, our COO, their top person, a couple of my peers. I knew it, but I didn't spend hours memorizing it because I thought I knew it, right? I wasn't being disrespectful to the team. I just felt like I had prepared enough. So I go the next morning and we had to get signed off on this stuff. So I present. And this gentleman who I'm still in contact with today, his name's Ray. Ray goes, Casey, how'd you think you did? And I said, I thought I did pretty good. I was watching your body language, watching my team's body language. It felt good. I felt great. He's like, why? He goes, well, what I've heard about you is that you're elite. That was nowhere near elite. It was good. I'm going to pass you. Sandy, you're up next. And I was just like, wow. Now I have a slide edge moment. Another great, if people want a book, Jeff Olson, the book called The Slide Edge. I had a slide edge. Do I either say, screw you, dude? Why would you do that in front of this? Try to embarrass me? It was a negative attitude, scarcity mindset, blame, not coachable, or the other person, which thank God I'm this way. I said, I was so mad at myself, Mark. I was so mad at myself that I let not only myself down, him down, the people around me down, that they maybe have this perception that I was like, what doesn't stink? At the end of the day, and I had to sit in this moment of pain, right? For the rest of the day. I got to the end of the day. So my buddy said, hey, Case, you want to go grab a beer at the bar? I'm like, I'm going to go up to my room real quick. I'll be down a little bit, knowing that I was never going to come down. From 6:30 until 10:30, I presented in my room in front of the mirror, day 2 content over and over, almost to the point I memorized it. I got in the elevator the next morning. My CMO goes, Case, are you okay? I'm like, yep. He's like, you seem off. I'm like, I'm just ready to compete. Let's go. And I was so ready to go. And I got I'm remembering it right now. It's taking me back to that moment. I get in front of the room. Ray goes, hey, Sandy, do you want to go? And I'm like, nope, I'm going to go first if that's cool. Sandy's that great. He says, yep, you go. I went, delivered it. I knew I killed it. He's like, all Ray goes, he goes, Casey, that's what elite looks like. Sandy, you're up. So the point is, I was almost 20 years in, everybody, right? I could have easily had this mindset of like, hey, I'm the best, right? But we're never the best, right? And as great as I was, quote unquote, at this company called Kforce, 30% of people might not even remember I worked there, right? And they're doing great. They're an amazing company. They're doing awesome. We're all replaceable. So if we have that mindset, like you might as well be coachable. You might as well find ways to embrace change, because if you don't embrace change, you're going to get dealt by it. Right. And so you talk about curiosity. I think that's one of my blessings that the guy upstairs gave me. I love learning. It's so fun. I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know anything about podcasting.
Right.
I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know,
It's amazingly fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I just find the whole thing amazingly fun because I want to learn. So when I actually, invite a guest on like yourself, I actually enjoy the process of reading your book, but I'm not going to have a guest if I haven't read their book. So when we do it, we're doing 1 to 2 a week. So that's a fair chunk of reading. That's why I've now migrated, trying to save a few trees here. So I do everything through Kindle. But that moment, I think that's what I really wanted you to touch on, that moment, Casey, because I just want everybody to take a pause and think about this for a second. We've got somebody who for 19 years has been the top performer in an organization. He's already, they're in the history of the company is the highest performing salesperson. Then they get an outside trainer. So the first thing you're going to see is a lot of people would say, well, I don't need an outside trainer. We don't need to transform anything. Why doesn't everybody just do what I'm doing? I'm killing it. Didn't have that mindset. Had the mindset, oh, this is interesting. Was impressed with the curriculum, studied up for the curriculum, then executed. And by the way, when you've been the top performer for about 19 years, you get a lot of people praising you for a lot of things on a pretty regular basis. Get used to it. It's kind of nice. And so then the power to the facilitator, by the way, whomever that was, for having the confidence of straight talk.
No, it's best thing ever.
You're a facilitator now. I'm a facilitator now. Think of this. If you're going to take the top person down a chip or two at the beginning of a big training workshop, that's the person you want on your side for the workshop. So that person certainly had a courageous moment, and to share some straight talk, and then but just unbelievable response for you. Rather than putting up the wall saying they don't know what they're talking about, I've already sold for 19 years in this industry. You said I can be better.
I think, Mark, I think that comes from, I hate to be Uncle Rico, shout out to Napoleon Dynamite, great movie, of my days of playing college football. For the people who don't understand the game of football, we played on Saturdays. On Sunday, we would watch film, meaning we would watch the game the day before. We'd go through each play, sometimes 7, 8, 9 times. Now, imagine if I threw an interception. I got 20 guys in the room. They knew I threw an interception on Saturday. Now I got to watch it again on Sunday. Not 1 time, not twice, 3.
10
Casey,
times.
what were you thinking? Why did you do that? Why didn't you check out? What was your steps? Why was your feet this way? Just constant coaching. Now, some might think that's kind of negative, but they did it in a way where it was inspired me to make change, right? And as a quarterback, if it's all about me, and one of my coaches told me this, and I still remember it. He says, if you have to go tell people how good you are, you're not that good. When you're great, they will tell you. And so we might as well be coachable and try to figure out ways to do it. No one, think about it. Do you want to be known as that someone's like, yeah, that guy or girl, super arrogant. No one wanted to be around her. They weren't curious. They never did anything for anybody else. Or be the person that's always serving others, that's going out of your way to treat the admin right, to treat finance right. Instead of blaming someone, lead with the ability to listen to learn versus listen to persuade. Figure out ways you can help be a better teammate or internally, and watch what happens to your culture, right? It's not a fluke that not only was I our top performer, but also the team I worked on. We were the #1 producing team forever because of these types of things that I not only demanded, but I led by them, right? We weren't going to just say these things and then go out and be an a-hole to the rest of the team. You had to walk the walk and prove it. And so when these moments of adversity come up, like our boy Socrates says, adversity is judged when faced with, true character is judged when faced with adversity, right? It's easy to be a leader when things are going great, right? But we have to remember, what are our core values that drive us, that lead us, that define us, and then go back to those moments of up and down.
Boy, you think it's easy to be a leader when things are going great. And I think that's where there's a huge challenge today, Casey, with sales management. I think sales management ends up being the X factor on a lot of what's happening in professional sales today. But I'm highly empathetic toward them because I think they have the three most demanding stakeholders in the world, because sales leaders deal with clients like you did. Sales leaders deal with their executive team or the board. So they've got that unrelenting pressure of quarterly performance.
Yep.
And then they've got the team. And so when you look at those three stakeholders, those are incredibly demanding stakeholders. So their time and capacity is non-existent. And these days, I think they've got to be a chameleon to effectively work well with the team. And so, and they're not comfortable in their roles. Why? Because of the stat I shared at the beginning, which is most of them move jobs in less than 2 years. Chief Revenue Officer, VP of Sales, Sales Manager. So it's almost an impossible position. And I think we need to think about how we help them out here these days, because they need help from people like you. And so, the coach of your football team wasn't one person. There was a coach, and there was 9 other coaches. You had a fitness coach, you had a nutrition coach, you had a mindset coach, you probably have a strength coach, and then you had a throwing, like a quarterback coach. So then there was the head coach for the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what happens today, we see this time and time again where clients bring us in, but unfortunately they bring us in for help, maybe after a senior person has been changed out, because that senior person had an impossible job, but they didn't feel comfortable going to get other coaches to help, because they thought, okay, if I go get help, that means I don't know what I'm doing, and I've got to be the all things to all people. And I just don't think it's possible anymore. And
Well,
as you said, pardon me, the beginning, we're not good at everything. We need to know where we've got some gaps.
Yep.
Go fill the gaps with some talent.
Yep. Yeah. I just had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and we talked about that exact thing around asking for help. And he said, well, how can we apply it? I said, how about this? I want you to go to your team, and I want you to say, and everyone's going to answer that and answer this question. I want to say, team, tell me within the last month where you've had to ask for help and it positively impacted you. And transversely, describe one area of your life, business, whatever, where you didn't ask for help and it negatively impacted you.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Good question.
And now we want people to think about not only worst case, current state, negative consequences of current state, future state. And if I fix that future state, what would happen? But until we make them sit in that moment of pain or discomfort, they're never going to make change, because the art of persuasion states the moment I try to convince you to do something, you're going to resist me. But if I ask great questions, you're going to end up selling yourself. Right? And that's what value-based selling is all about. So I don't know. I think this stuff, it's so important. And as you said earlier, why I wrote the book for my 23-year-old self, I had amazing leaders along the way, but what I didn't have sometimes is someone that actually did what I did. And so a lot of times my CEO would say, Case, you're 2 miles ahead of us in the Amazon with a machete, and we're trying to keep up. Some might think that that's a compliment. It became a frustration, because I wanted to be the dumbest in the room. I wanted to be the weakest in the weight room. I wanted to be the person that didn't know how to read. And when now I get to give back to people at times where I get so much inspiration working with someone who's 25 or 40 or 30, whatever age they are, but to be able to provide real life examples of, these aren't things I'm making up. These are real life street fights that I got myself in, and I got out of it and I survived. But to be able to see someone try it and apply it and then have success, it's the most rewarding thing in the world.
Well, how amazing. And you think if you were on your team, if I was on your team, I'd feel comfortable saying, here's where we are, but I want to talk through something with you. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I don't have the answer. It means a couple of different sets of eyes are helpful. And we like a little exercise, Casey, where we do a deal strategy, where we're working a big deal. But the rules of conduct are, when we enter the room to talk about this deal, let's say it's your deal, and it's me and Keith Moon and Carrie Price, we're on your sales team. The rule when we get in there is we're all just part of your think tank. So even if I'm your boss, there's no judgment. It's not about inspection. It's about collaboration. We have a little exercise where we go through where we'll try and come up with some ideas for you in terms of things you could do from that point forward to dramatically improve your strategic positioning. That doesn't mean there aren't other meetings as a sales leader where there is going to be inspection, and we're going to get that opportunity to make sure there's accountability on the team. It's just that this meeting isn't that one. Because if people feel like they're getting inspected every time, they don't want to share. They don't want to talk about strategizing on the deal. And so many good things happen if we strategize on a deal today, because actually, I think one of the big problems in sales today, it's not the top of the funnel. People always think we don't have enough top of the funnel. It's actually our close rate on the bottom of the funnel is getting lower. So we're actually bidding on things. We're just winning less and more deals are going to no decision because we're not adding any value. So I think
we assume, or we don't ask the right questions.
This is it. This is always about the right questions. Love in the book, by the way, team, we get some great coaching examples in the book from Casey, where he references the Socratic method. And it's a fancy way of actually just articulating that don't give them the answer. Liz Wiseman wrote a great book called Multipliers that speaks to the same thing. It's so hard to coach because you want to tell everybody what to do.
Right.
They can't hear you.
I learned that later from my CEO at the end of my time with Kforce. And I already knew it, but I didn't really, it was like another great reteacher. And it took me back to one of my buddies, shout out to Harlan Smith, if you're listening. He's one of the most smartest engineers in the world. He's my buddy Greer Smith's dad. He would do this when like in 8th grade. I'd go to him for math help. And I say, hey, he called him HB, hey, what do I do here? He's like, I don't know. What do you think? I was like, well, I'm asking you because I don't know. He's like, I know, but tell me what you think. I'm like, I don't know. He says, you got to try. I'm like, he was doing the Socratic method on me back then. And so the power of what that does, leaders, if you take one thing out of that, you don't have to, it's not about you anymore. You don't have to be the smartest in the room. You don't need to know all your credentials and all these things. It's your job to help improve critical thinking skills of your team, because now it opens up opportunities for delegation, opens up opportunity for more opportunity, more career path. And if your team is doing things successful, that's a representation of you. And the good and great leaders understand that. The bad ones they'll maybe never going to get it because it's always about them, and it's not. It's about your team. And the Socratic method is a great way to apply it.
Great example. And by the way, Liz Wiseman completely agrees with you. She speaks of multipliers versus diminishers. And if you have to be that smartest person in the room and you have to be, giving the answer to everybody, the intelligence of your team actually declines. Whereas if you apply the Socratic method in the way that Casey sort of articulated, you actually develop people jumping outside their comfort zone, but there has to be a safe comfort zone there too, because they're going to make some decisions that might not go the right way. That's okay. It's part of a learning. We just don't want to do it twice or 3 times. Hey.
Well, I was going to say one thing you said that made me think of another thing I want to point out. Tone is very important, sales leaders. Tone and how you deliver a message and body language. So if I was coaching Mark and I'd say, tell me what you think, Mark. Come on. Tell me what you think. That's a negative. I mean, it's Mark, hey, we're here to learn. Tell me what you think. Take a crack. Like you're hearing curiosity in my voice. You're hearing positivity in my voice, right? Create an environment where your team isn't scared of you. Right? It's not, it doesn't matter. There's things in schools. We talk about no bullying. Don't be a bully in the sales team. No one needs it. Right?
Thank you.
Right. And if a CEO, if you have a bully in your team, get rid of them. Right. You want to talk about leadership. Some of the best companies I've worked for, they didn't allow that stuff. Right. It doesn't matter how much money they're making you, because in the end, you're think about what they're doing to employee churn. Think of what you're doing to the morale. Right. I'm about to coach someone right now about that. The person has a massive ego. Help me help that person out. Can't wait. And I hope I can help them in by using my own failures and gaps. But like, I don't know, you hit a chord for me on that one, because it's stuff's so important. It's not talked about enough.
Well, doesn't it come back to the golden rule? Treat other people the way you would like to be treated. And so now that doesn't mean, CEOs are held accountable, VPs are held accountable, salespeople, we're all held accountable. Yeah. We have to perform. Athletes are held accountable. We have to perform. There's another quarterback if Casey wasn't meeting the objective. There is. In fact, there's 5 of them sitting on a bench or playing in junior teams or They call them the Black Aces. They wear black helmets in hockey. They're the team that travels but doesn't play. So they have these black helmets. So there were lots of other goalies, even in prep school, that happy to take my spot. And sometimes they did, by the way, when I wasn't performing.
Yeah.
I was a good dose of humility too, where I get to sit for a couple of games and think about how committed I am. But there's no bullying, and it doesn't have to be humiliation. It's just about trying to get better.
How was that skate back to the bench, right?
Oh, by the way,
You went
you mentioned I'll give him a call out. You mentioned your dad at the beginning. I'll give a call out to my beautiful dad. So British guy, came over from England, but loved hockey. Lands in Canada, loves hockey, gets us in hockey. So we didn't play. But boy, could he ask those those questions, because I remember I was having maybe one of those fixed mindset moments. Maybe I'm about 15, 16. We're jumping in the car for like a 2-hour drive because we played in different cities. And I'm sitting. So goalies either play or they sit. I'm sitting. And I'd been the guy, and some good things had happened, and I was feeling pretty entitled.
Yeah.
We're in this drive out there, and I think I was complaining about sitting for the game and had to travel all the way out not to play and so forth. He kind of made this comment, he said, geez, I wonder if there's a way of you getting back in the net so you don't sit anymore. And his question was, there was a bit of a statement behind it, which is, maybe we can complain, or we can actually just work a little harder and play just a little bit better so they'll never sit you again.
Yeah.
And boy, that was a little bit of a life lesson for that 2-hour drive, because I was just stewing through it. But even today, 40 years later, 30 years later, I still haven't forgot it.
But he asked you a question though.
He did.
He didn't tell you, come on, son, you suck. Get back in the net. He asked
That's
you.
right.
He made it your idea.
Yeah.
So shout out to your pops. That's awesome.
Yeah. He was a good one. That's for sure. Hey, Casey. First of all, what an absolute pleasure it's been chatting with you here today. I've got one question from the team.
Okay.
Somebody's chatted a beautiful question. Then we're going to ask you a little bit about, how we learn more about getting in touch with you. And folks, before we lose it, let's remember, win the relationship, not the deal. Win the relationship, not the deal. 6 common sense strategies to succeed in life and business. And as always with everything, when you read these great books, let the authors know, or give them the rating on Amazon. Let your community know that it's an amazing book. So 6 common sense strategies to succeed in life and business. The book is called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. It's on the In the Funnel list of books now. So a great question here from a great sales leader. I know this fellow, Greg Taylor. Shout out to Greg, great guy. Hey, Casey, what was your greatest challenge and resolution with a potential client who at first did not want to do business with you?
Oh, I wrote about this in the book. It took me, 4 or 5 years to work with her. She would not call me back, didn't believe. And we were selling staffing services. And for whatever reason, that group, I was aiming too high. I was going top down versus bottom up. I changed my strategy and I started building relationships with her team. And so she had like 4 or 5 people on her team. And I just started slowly chipping away. Like we did a couple of deals with one group, got introductions to another group, did a couple of deals with that group, did a couple of lunches where we brought them together, did a couple of events where I brought them together. This took 5 years, I think of 5 years. At the end, I then worked, this is what I learned from some of my mentors. I wrote an email that said and I give an example of this in the book as well. And I talk about, her name is Nadine. I said, Nadine, not sure you know about us, but this is who I am. This is what we're doing for your organization. Here's some of the problems that we're solving. Here's some of the impact we're making according to your team. I'd love an opportunity just to introduce myself so that you know who I am. We know each other. We're also going to be a sponsor at this big event that you guys go to in Las Vegas. I'm available at these 3 times, which I'm a big believer in that. Never give them, don't say, let me know when you can get back to me. Give them time so that it's kind of like your kids, peas or carrots, you pick. They're gonna win. We win as an adult. And so within like minutes, she got back to me and she goes, I'm available at this time. And I was like fist pumping, so jacked up. But the moment of knowing I could have easily quit 5 years ago, but I know she used the services we provide, but I had to be patient. Chapter 6, resilient, chapter 6, perseverance, chapter 6. And to this date, I'm still friends with her.
Oh, fantastic.
Still friends there. I've done nonprofit work with her. We've both support each other. I helped her daughter out. She's helped me out. And it's like, but those wins make a sales profession so worth it, because in the end, so many people are going to quit and take the short route because they want it now. And it's not about that. It's about the long game. That's which the whole mindset of what I wrote about. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, Greg, thank you for that question. Greg Taylor, amazing question. Tell us a little bit about the business, Casey. Tell us about winning the relationship.
Yeah, I mentioned you before we joined. This found me. And shout out to City of Toronto, Coach Andrew Moss. If you're out there listening, he is one of the biggest reasons I got off the ground. I had companies ask me if I coach, and my answer was, yeah, I coach my kids, like in sports, and they're like, no, in business. And so I realized that my certification was 20 years of experience, and writing this book, that's my certification. So now I'm coaching folks within wealth management, real estate, consulting, staffing. I've done work in insurance, all relationship-based selling environments where you have to build trust, because our product is me. Our product is trust. Our product is the relationship I have. Sometimes, I can't, like when I was in the staffing business, I couldn't just, guarantee what the person's going to do, because each person is different. I didn't know what was going to happen. Right. But I could guarantee when stuff goes wrong, I was going to fix it. So I'm really coaching around 4 key areas: curiosity, humility, vulnerability, and then messaging. Too often companies I see they don't understand the problems that exist. They don't understand the problems that they solve. They don't understand how they solve their problem differently, better for their clients. And then they don't have proof. And so those are 4 questions I work with my clients on, just to make sure they have clarity around that.
Oh, fantastic. And tell us a little bit about the Quarterback Dadcast.
Yeah, it was like a pet project. Shout out to my former college teammate, Ty Nunez. He helped me get this thing off the ground back. And we did start this in 2020 as well. Now we're on episode 123.
Wow.
We're booked all the way into February. I've been blessed with some amazing dads that have joined. And selfishly, I think I did this for myself, because I get therapy as a dad by dads every week. And it reminds me what is important. And I don't care if I'm going to interview the quarterback of the Seahawks, the center for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the CEO of, I don't care who they are. In the end, we have the same job description, which is dad. And it's our job to create great human beings. It's our job to keep kids out of jail, sarcastically speaking, but it's our job to teach them how to become great citizens, great employees, great husbands,
Right.
Great friends, right? It's not about the outcome. It's about the process, right? And so for me, it's a great way to talk to dads about their own gaps. Talk about gratitude a lot. We understand how they grew up, how their parents impacted them. So I love it. It's absolutely so much fun that I get to do this.
Well, what amazing. So that's the Quarterback Dadcast team, Quarterback Dadcast. Thinking today, we chatted it's the first time we met. Both of us chatted for an hour. We both mentioned our dads. And again, our hearts and thoughts go to you with working with your dad in this current situation.
Yep, thank you.
Touched me with your at the book. Team, first of all, Casey, thank you so much for joining today. What a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you.
It was an honor to join. I love what you're doing. I think it's so important. Hopefully people got some good takeaways from our conversation. I love the questions you asked. So keep up the great work, Mark.
Oh, thank you so much, Casey. And if anybody wants to reach out to you directly, tell us again the easiest way to get in contact with you again right now.
Yeah, I'd say three ways. Find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. I'm super curious. As I mentioned, you can visit my website, which is caseyjacox.com, or you can email me directly at casey@caseyjacox.com. And I'd love to figure out how I can help serve others and learn. And if I can be of service to anybody, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation.
Fantastic. So last name Jacox, Jacox.
That's right.
Team, it really is our privilege and pleasure to do this every week. So thank you all for joining today. And you can watch replays of this on our website. It's going to be on LinkedIn, posted on LinkedIn if you want to pull out some of the nuggets that Casey has shared today. And again, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be releasing our podcast, which we're so excited to do. And this will be converted into a podcast, so you can keep listening to Casey on the podcast when he'll be one of the first 5 or 6 that we release. Listen, team, all of us are in a sprint for the next 4 weeks as we roll out of 2021. And we know what happens in Q4. We know what happens in the last 4 weeks here. We go hard. Lots of companies are spending budget before the end of the year. And a naturally high percentage of deals get done during this period of time. So our focus is there for sure. I'd just like to remind everybody that we've had a pretty busy 18 months. And many of us have been dealing with unique stresses other people didn't have to deal with years and years past. We've been working with our families, our loved ones, our businesses to adapt to these unique times. So we've all been under a little bit of stress here. And one of the things I'd like to encourage everybody to do is go to your calendars today and let's make sure for sure once a week for the next 4 weeks, we take a full day off. We don't open email. We're not responding to calls. We're not doing proposals. Recharge your batteries. So this is going to be, we're starting to feel the effects and the compound effects of the challenges we've been through, and we've all, made great strides. But take care of yourself. And if you're a sales leader, take care of the team and make sure they're doing the same thing. We want to roll out of 2021 feeling great so we can get a fantastic start to 2022. And we'll see everybody next week on next week's webinar. And Casey, thanks again. It's just great to chat with you.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye, everyone.